why do we need EPDs and what are they? So we've obviously got quite a range of people on this call today. I don't know what all of your kind of understanding of EPDs are, so I will go back to basics and just go into what an EPD actually is. So an EPD is basically an environmental product declaration. It's essentially an externally verified and standardized description of the environmental profile of a product or material over its lifetime. And it helps to transparently communicate a product's environmental impact and provides a summary of the cradle to grave emissions. And it's considered a type 3 environmental label. EPDs are LCAs or life cycle assessments, which is a standardized methodology for measuring the environmental impact of a material. And they are, of course, done to certain standards. So the life cycle assessments standards is the EN 15824 for construction products and also the ISO 21930 as well. And then they have to be third party verified and published as well, according to the ISO 14025 standards. One quite nice analogy for thinking of an EPD is to think of it as a bit of a nutrition label, but for products and for the environmental impacts rather than the nutritional facts. So in this nutrition label here, we have got the serving size. So in an EPD, this would be your declared unit. So your declared unit is the unit you base your whole assessment off. So whether that is a meter squared of flooring or a meter cubed of concrete or a ton of something, it really does just depend on what the product is. The calories then would generally refer to in an EPD would be your kind of total global warming potential. So rather than being an amount of energy, it's actually your CO2 equivalent. And then the nutrients in a label would, in an EPD, generally refer to, rather than ingredients, it's all of your environmental impact indicators. So EPDs don't just report on CO2, they also report on a lot of other environmental impacts as well, such as eutrophication, ozone depletion, etc. So why are they important and why do we need them? So if we focus on the construction sector's carbon footprints, buildings are responsible for about 39% of total global emissions. 28% of those come from the operational carbon of that building, so the day-to-day electricity, heating, and use. And then 11% comes from the actual materials and construction of that building, so the embodied carbon. There we are. Our building stock is set to double in the next 40 years, so it is growing very rapidly, which means our emissions could also potentially double whilst we have to account for the grid decarbonising and things like that. It's the equivalent to building in New York City every single month. So pretty big. So just the carbon footprint alone from that expansion will accelerate climate change by about 6 years. Obviously, we do have various global and country-specific carbon reduction targets to meet. So in order to be able to meet these targets, we need to be able to measure and then reduce our emissions. So therefore, we need a way to measure them. As Peter Drucker once famously said, you can't manage what you don't measure. And that is therefore what EPDs are used for. So why concrete? Concrete is the most widely used and manufactured material on the planet. And concrete alone is accounting for 1.5% of all emissions in the UK and 8% globally. So it's pretty huge. A couple of reasons, I guess, why we use concrete. I mean, it's obviously a great material. That is why it is used so vastly around the world. So, I mean, one of the reasons it's used is obviously it's a foundation of modern development. It defends against natural disasters, flood barriers, dams, bunkers, etc. It's a critical material for infrastructure projects such as railways, roads, and tunnels. It enables us to build higher buildings, although we are finding ways to do that with timber, etc. now. It doesn't quite match up to using concrete. And it's also a cheap material compared to using steel, for example. And of course, it is available around the world. Some of the negatives to using concrete. So cement is the key ingredient, and cement production alone is responsible for 8% of CO2 emissions annually. Chemical processes which turn the raw materials of limestone and clay into cement are a large emitter as well. We are exhausting our supplies of usable sand, which is of course a raw material. And then we also use vast amounts of water within the manufacturing processes. So almost 10% of the world's industrial water supplies go into concrete production. Some of the positives, though, it's not all bad, is carbonization takes CO2 out of the air if concrete is exposed to air. CO2 can also be injected directly into the concrete. Concrete mixers can also use waste products like ash and ground blast furnace slag and recycled plastics, plus many others. And obviously it is long lasting, so it's going to have a long lifespan. In terms of, so one thing I was going to mention on that as well is obviously as a concrete manufacturer, you're potentially going to be producing hundreds, maybe thousands of ready mix concretes in your factories, which basically use the same materials or mostly the same materials, the same energy, the same factory processes, etc. So in theory, producing EPDs for these materials should be quick and easy. However, historically, it's not been quite that simple. So in terms of how EPDs are created, kind of the old way of creating an EPD before kind of software was developed was potentially you'd go to a consultant, or you would learn how to do it yourself, understand the standards and what data is required. You then need to collect your data. So the types of material you're using, where you're getting those from, the quantities of those materials, and then obviously your factory emissions as well. So how much energy you're using in your factory to produce one of your declared units. You then need to understand how to create an LCA and the standards and rules associated with that. Also your EPD report to be compliant with a verifier and publishers. And then to actually get it verified and published into an EPD as well. So you would need to speak to a third party about that. So it can be quite stressful if you're not a sustainability consultant, which most manufacturers are not, and also quite expensive and quite a time-consuming process. So the whole idea of the one-click software is that it's an end-to-end automated tool. The idea is that it's a lot quicker. It's pre-verified already by EPD Hub, who are a verification and publishing body, which means that they've already looked at the data we use, all of the background calculations and the outputs of the software, and they've pre-approved that information, meaning every time you create an EPD in the software, it's a lot quicker for them to verify and publish, and therefore we get slightly better rates with them as well. The actual report is all automated. So you input the data into the software and it automatically creates your report for you. And obviously we have got large support teams as well in-house to help you with that. So whether that's extra one-to-one help or just our standard onboarding training. So I'm going to pass over now to Graham, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about our new Concrete EPD tool. So we've developed this specifically for the concrete industry to streamline the process, where a lot of the kind of materials and emissions, energy use is going to be the same. The software basically replicates that. So over to you, Graham.
Okay, thanks, Verity. I'll just start sharing and then you can confirm if you can see it.
No probs.
Can you see the screen?
Have I stopped sharing mine? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I can see that.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So Before I go into the demo, we'll talk a little bit about the tool itself. So as Verity already sort of touched on, this is a solution for the concrete industry, and it's tailored specifically for concrete. So all of the data that's in there is specifically for concrete. It's compliant with the necessary standards, both in Europe and around the world. So EN 15804 plus A2 and ISO 14025. We also have the training and support to help you with this process. And I'll also talk a little bit about what's included in our onboarding process as well. And it also has integrated publishing. So no need to send documents back and forth, try to find verifiers and so on. We have that integrated into the tool. Some of the value drivers then, again, just sort of reiterate the fact that one of the things that we really hope people use One-Click LCA for is decarbonizing their business. And the tool helps you do that because you can get consistent data for all of your products and manufacturing sites. It can help you identify the hotspots and to be able to, bring down those carbon values. And also one thing that we'll be adding to the tool is the possibility to be able to benchmark your data against the market. We really hope that this helps win more business for clients as well, so that once you're able to create EPDs sort of on demand, then you'll be able to satisfy the needs of your clients if they want project EPDs, for example, in a short space of time. And also then you can also demonstrate what your solution can offer in terms of decarbonization potential. One-Click LCA, we're already working with many of the manufacturers in this industry, and we look forward to welcoming any new manufacturers in as well to use this tool specifically. There's maybe quite a lot of information on this slide, but we'll focus on the Concrete EPD Generator in this, let's call it the second column. So what basically does it support? Just concrete. So that's it. At the moment, it's used for ready-mix concrete only. And it supports the standards for EN 15804 and ISO as well, as mentioned. The tool's third-party verified. The data is all third-party verified, and lifecycle data is verified as well. So that's what makes it an end-to-end fully verified tool. When it comes to the verification of the EPDs, the first 3 EPDs that you create with the tool, they're always verified fully and manually by an approved verifier. Then after that, the EPDs are automatically approved. So it's a much faster process, and they're sort of like, as soon as you submit it, it automatically has approval. There is the possibility to suspend or recall EPDs. So if it raises a certain flag or whatever, then it is possible that EPD can be recalled. But otherwise, if everything is in good order, then they're automatically published. In terms of the functionality of the tool, it is possible to use unverified data in the tool. Like if you have private LCA data, for example, however, you can't publish EPDs with unverified data. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. So you can still use the tool for research and development, for example. You can use EPDs in the tool, so it's not just generic data. With EcoInvent being the main source of generic data, you can also use EPDs in your mix. So if you have a supplier of cement that has an EPD already, then you can use that directly in your LCA and EPD as well. The possibility to use import and API is something that we're looking to add to the tool later on as needed. You can generate unverified LCAs, so you don't necessarily have to publish EPDs for everything. If you wanted to have a private LCA that shouldn't be made public, that's also possible. Sending digital private LCAs. So let's say, for example, you have a contractor that's using One-Click LCA to do their own LCA of a building, and you want to send them your LCA to use in theirs, then that's also possible through the software. And you can also do comparison and analysis of your LCAs relatively simply in the tool as well. So that's it, just to sort of summarize on what the tool has in it and what it sort of what it can produce. So now I'll go over to the software. So you should still be able to see the screen now in the software. And here I am on the home page, or the main page of the software once you've logged in. So I've already created this project called Why Concrete Needs EPDs webinar for today. But I'll start from the beginning. It looks like we've got a decent amount of time to how to actually create the project in the beginning. So I've got this plus add button over here in the top right corner. So I'll click here and then click product. I want to do product lifecycle assessment, or EPD. And then I choose my license. I'm using this EPD expert demo license today. And then I can just call it like test. With the expert license, you have the option to add it to a folder, but I'll skip this option for now. And then I'll choose that my product is a concrete from ready mix. And the country, my location is here in Finland, and you can of course change that to wherever it is you are in the world. So if it's in the UK, I can choose like this for UK, and then click next. You can optionally add an image to your design, to your project, so that when you come to the home page that it's sort of easily identifiable, but not necessary, but you can if you wish. I'll skip that and just click next. So now I've created my test project. This is the one that I created earlier. So I've called it this C2530 SEM2 AS 10% GGBS. That was the name of the mix that I used for this particular design, and I created it in advance. The sort of hands here are pointing in the right direction, like, do I want to add a new design? So I'm also going to show that now as well. So I can click this plus add a design. So now I have the possibility to create a new design or a new LCA. So again, I can call this one a test design. And then I can choose my scope. So am I including end of life, which is required from the EN 15804 standard? So I can choose this one, A1 to A3, or cradle to gate, and C1 to C4 and module D. A4, A5 are optional modules, but I can include those as well. So why not? And I have the tool selected for the Concrete EPD Generator. So I just click add. So that's the very basics of creating a project and then creating a design. In the Concrete EPD tool, what we have is a lot of preloaded templates for which you can choose for different types of ready mix concrete. So if I choose input data, here we can go to the results page or go to the data input, what we call queries in the tool, where you fill in the data. And down here at the bottom, we have this copy data from another design. So if I choose this copy data from another design, and then I can select the design that I already have access to. And when you use the tool, you have access to all of these pre-made templates. So if I type in here, template, so this first is a design I tested for manufacturing site data. And then the rest of these, my colleague entities. So these are entities that we've created at One Click LCA and give you access to. And they are like lots of different types of mixes. So I've chosen one of these C20, or no, I think I chose 35 or so. But yeah, you can see lots of different types of cement types or mix types that you can choose to get started with your design. So let's just choose this one randomly, C4050. I can click on this one and then copy all data. And when I do that, it will automatically put in a mix for me. So I can use this as a starting point for my LCA. I don't have to start from scratch choosing materials and so on. I can start from there. So if I check in here now in the materials and manufacturing query in A1 to A3, I'll already have a recipe for this specific specification of concrete. I'll go back to the other one that I created in a moment. So here we can see for that particular mix that I chose, we've got our Portland cement, 360 kilos. We have our fine aggregates, our coarse aggregates, tap water and plasticizer, and as well as fly ash. So this is the particular mix for this design. If yours is like slightly different, so you have a little bit less cement, a little bit extra sand, whatever the case is, then you can, of course, adjust these quantities. So it's specific to your recipe. So this way that we've set up the tool allows you to get started with your LCA in very quick format. I'll just go back to the main page and go back to this design where I filled in all of the queries. So first query is the manufacturer and the site. Here we have some very basic texts about who the manufacturer is and what is the site location for this particular mix. If you're a manufacturer with multiple sites, that is, then we'll change this information based on the specific site for this EPD. So pretty straightforward information. And this information comes from your company account. So the name of the manufacturer, you can see here, One Click LCA Limited for my internal account and their address and so on. Yours will be pre-filled based on the data that you have in your company account. And then the manufacturing site data, using the expert feature, you can preload manufacturing site data as well. So this will automatically be filled in too. So there's not a whole lot of work that needs to go into this. In the product specification tab then, here we write the name of the product, which comes from the name that I've written for my design, which is this. And then the description of what the product is, what is it used for, what are the technical specifications or characteristics that it complies with. And then in the next one, from these drop-down menus, we can choose what kind of concrete it is. So at the moment, we're using this tool for ready mix concrete. We choose from drop-down what is the strength evaluation in days, the compressive strength class, and then the exposure class. A future update to this tool, which is coming soon, will allow the selection of multiple exposure classes. Then product raw material composition. This is required for reporting on the EPD itself. So what percentage of our recipe is in each of these categories. And then the last one on REACH materials or substances of very high concern. By default, there's a note that says there are no such substances. But if there are, you just click the input data, give the name of the material, its EC number and CAS number. For example, if there are any like REACH materials in the admixture or something like that. So basic information then in product specification. And then we have a look at the materials and manufacturing query again, similar to what we saw in the test example I made just a moment ago. We have our declared unit. So by default for ready mix concrete, it's 1 cube. And then we have our mass of declared unit, which might vary a little bit up or down depending on the specific concrete. And then we have our recipe. So we have our basic materials that usually go in, and then we have some additional materials like GGBS or fly ash or some other kinds of binders and things like that. And after our materials, we have our manufacturing data. And this specifically comes from the energy that's consumed in the process of making the concrete. I mentioned already this manufacturing site data feature in the expert license. If you use that feature, you can automatically populate this. So you create how much energy is required for, let's say, 1 kilo of concrete, and then you scale that up based on the kilos per cube for every single concrete that's produced from that manufacturing site. Of course, you don't have to use that feature. Otherwise, you just input the data manually, like searching for the keyword searching in this box, add our electricity, add our heating, and add our values for that particular site. I'll just mention here some of the other automation that happens in the background here with the tool. So one of those things is the end of life. So I mentioned that's mandatory for EN 15804. So for those of us creating EPDs in Europe, we have to declare the end of life. And the tool has an end of life scenario built into it. So here we choose the end of life scenario. At the moment, we have a single scenario, which is 70% recycling and 30% landfilling. And having this scenario in here, then it automatically populates the values that need to go into C1, C2, C3, C4, and the module D benefits. So you don't have to spend any time trying to figure out how to do the modeling for end of life. It's automatically included in there. Other automation includes production losses. So here, if we say we lose 2% of our materials during the production phase, that 2% is added on top. So we get an extra 2% of materials that are required to cover this loss, and the waste processing of those materials are also automatically included in the tool using the same scenario that's used at end of life for recycling and landfilling of this excess or waste concrete. So this added automation makes life a lot easier in terms of what you need to model in the software. Moving on then from A1 to A3, we go to transport and construction stage, A4 to A5. So in A4, you only need to input the kilometers traveled. So how far do you need to go to deliver this concrete? And in the background, there's already a data point for a concrete mixer truck, so you don't even need to choose anything there. In A5, similarly to production losses, if there's installation losses, you simply put the percentage here, and in the background, the software will calculate how much extra material is required and what waste treatment is required of that material as well. So you simply need to know what your percentage loss, or at least a conservative estimate of that during installation is, if indeed you include this stage. And also there's a predefined scenario for the energy required during installation. And there's a reference mentioned here in the comment field about how that's being calculated as well. Of course, you can change this if you have more accurate data. Otherwise, this scenario is perfectly fine to use. So that takes us up to A5. And we've already handled our end of life. So then in terms of EPD generation, from this page, you can add your company logo as the brand image, and then a product image, which will appear on the cover page of the EPD. There are some other fields to choose from, drop-down menus, averaging, not currently possible in the tool, and then EPD standards and verification. So who is the author of this EPD and from which company? Is it 15804 or is it ISO standards that you're working with? And then these fields are already pre-selected. In the future update of the tool, then it will be possible to edit this. So you can also do project EPDs and other categories of EPDs as well. So that's all you need to fill out. So a lot of it is automated or assisted, like the templates that show you the way for the mix and the data points to choose. And the data itself, as I mentioned before, is pre-verified data. So if I just quickly show here in the company account, so you have two sets of data, company lists and reference lists. And in reference lists, we have this pre-made data list, and we can click on view here, and you see all the different types of materials that are available to choose. These are hand-picked materials that are specific for ready-mix concrete. So plasticizers, water, different kinds of cement, different aggregates, different heat production and electricity production, limestone. Here we can see a lot more different types of cement as well. So there's quite a lot of data points in here to choose from, but it's quite narrowed down compared to the amount of data points that are actually available in EcoInvent. So in the full list, there's 83 data points. In EcoInvent, there's something like 17,000 data points. So with this refined list, you can't go far wrong. And in the company list, if there's something missing, then you can create this list and request for it to be verified. So you need specific data for a specific material, or it could be, in this case, I've added energy profile, so electricity in Finland, for example, and then we can request for that to be verified, add it to your list, so you can use it in your EPD. Just to touch on then the onboarding and so on. This is actually the article in the help center about onboarding. So how do we actually train people to use the tool? We have two options: fast track, slow track. So 2 weeks, 4 weeks. So it's very quick to get up and running and get the first EPD created. And of course, which track you choose depends on how much data you have available and how much time you have to dedicate to the onboarding process. But as you've seen, there's lots of automations, and really all you need is bill of materials and manufacturing site data, and then you can get started. So we basically have a kickoff call to understand exactly what it is that you want to achieve in terms of that first EPD, and to plan how we're going to have the other workshops. And then we have an online course where you work through the chapters to learn about how to produce the EPDs and use the tool. And depending on whether you're on the fast track or slow track, we have those sessions weekly or bi-weekly. And the course has 6 chapters. So first 3 chapters before the first workshop, second 3 chapters before the second workshop. And by the end of it, we should have the first EPD ready to be verified. This is what the course looks like when you log in. So you can see the chapters there, and you click through the different lessons. There's some exercises and assignments to submit to make sure that we stay on track to get that first EPD done. So that's basically it, as much as I could squeeze into the demo for today. Happy to answer any questions once we get to the Q&A, if anybody wants me to go back on anything else. And I'll just quickly return to the slideshow just to show what the EPD that comes out the other side looks like. It looks something like this. The font or colors may be a little bit different, but we have the first 3 pages that are about the product, the life cycle assessment itself. So some details on who the manufacturer is, what the product is, and how the LCA has been actually done. And then we have the next 2 pages, which are the results, the most important part of the EPD. So it's quite a concise EPD, just 5 pages. There's actually a 6th page, which is a verification statement from EPD Hub. Otherwise, very concise EPD that has all of the details that are necessary. So that's it for my side of things. I can hand back over to Verity as we start the wrap up on the Q&A. You're on mute at the moment, Verity.
There we are. Thank you, Graham. I'm just going to share my screen again from here. Okay, can you see those slides now?
Yes.
Perfect. So before we go onto the Q&A, actually, I've just got a quick poll to ask people. I've actually got to stop sharing in order to share the poll, so I'll go back again. So basically, if you are interested in what you've heard today and you want to speak to someone at One Click LCA about how this could work for you in your company and how you could create EPDs for your products, then we would love to know. So just popping out a quick poll. If you want one of us to contact you, it would be either myself or someone else in our team to discuss your own requirements, then just let us know. You can either answer yes, please, or no, thank you. Okay, can you see that poll on your screen now, Graham?
Yes.
Yeah, there we are.
And I can see your desktop.
Ah, oh dear. Yeah, that's fine. I will share a different screen. This one here. Cool. Can you see the slides again now? Just before we go on to the Q&A as well, I wanted to just mention one of our clients, Fosrock, have recently produced some EPDs. They haven't used our concrete tool, but they manufacture concrete repair products, so that's what they've done their EPDs for. And they've used our main EPD tool, pre-verified by EPD Hub, but they've just done a webinar on their kind of sustainability journey, but also quite specifically their EPD generation. So if you wanted to have a little look at a specific case study of someone using the software and the results that they've produced and how they've managed to reduce their emissions, then I've included a link here. Obviously, we will distribute the slides after the session as well.